Hey friends, it's Simon Hurley from Inklipse and welcome to another video. Now today I am super excited. I'm actually doing a video collab with Alexandra from the Hedgehog Hollow, and we're doing kind of a finish this card collab. So Alexandra on her channel created a couple of different backgrounds using my Simon Hurley Create inks and a bunch of different techniques using them, and then she shipped them over my way. I have the 4 backgrounds now. They look awesome, and in today's video I'm super excited to be creating them into cards, and I'm going to share with all of you a bunch of tips to turn your backgrounds into cards. Because as a crafter myself, I know that we love to create backgrounds. We end up with a huge stack of them, but then at the end never know what to do with all those backgrounds. So hopefully today's video gives you a couple tips to help you out in order to use your backgrounds on your cards. We're doing a live premiere for these videos, so mine is probably the second one you're seeing if you are watching it live, and that's awesome. And if you aren't watching live, I'll leave a link down below to Alexandra's video so that once you're done watching this, you can see just how she created these awesome backgrounds. If you like anything you see in today's video, as always, I'll have shopping links down below where you can go shopping for any of the supplies, and I get a little bit of a kickback with no extra cost to you, and that just helps me support this channel, and I really appreciate that. Alright, without further ado, let's get right on into the video. Alright, so let's start off with this pink and purple background that Alexandra created. This is a really fun one, and I think she did it on like a Yupo cardstock, which is a really fun surface to use my Simon Hurley Create inks on, because you can kind of capture those fun little splatters there. So what I thought to do with this is die cut it. I really love die cutting down backgrounds. It's a great way to use the color and kind of texture on the cards in a really fun and creative way. And then you could take the other parts that you didn't die cut and use them on other cards. So what I'm going to do is use the MFT So Many Yays die cuts. What I love about these is it had 3 yays. They're pretty versatile, and also what I love when you want to die cut things out like this is I love when they're kind of thicker like this, so you're able to still see lots of that color and texture through it rather than just using a really thin die. So let's go in here. I'm going to go right in between those kind of pink and purple colors where there's lots of texture right there. And then I can tape this down on my surface. I'm going to use just a little bit of this smaller purple tape. I'm just going to tape my die right down to the background, and then I can run this right through my die cutting machine. Okay, so here's what that looks like all die cut out. I really love how that turned out, and you get that really cool kind of pink and purple texture in that sense. It has that thicker wording. And then the cool part about this is you can totally chop this right in half and use this on another card, so you still get lots of use out of your background. Or you can use it as kind of a matting layer and just cover up where you die cut. So there's lots of uses for this background, even though you die cut something out of it. Okay, so now I've taken that same yay die and I've die cut it out of my stark white cardstock 3 more times. So in total, I'm going to have 4 layers on here, and this is just so I can build up the die cut and make it a little bit more substantial on my card. I really recommend doing this to anybody who's kind of layering down a die cut. It really makes a die cut stand out more, especially if that's one of the focal points of your card. You want to make sure that it stands out. So having this nice thick stark white cardstock underneath there is going to help build up those layers and make it stand up off my card. And I just like to use a liquid adhesive here. Here I'm using Collage Matte Medium, which is really nice and sticky. It's also matte, so if anything seeps out of the edges, it's going to be nice and translucent, so it's not going to show on your actual die cut. The liquid adhesive just allows for a little bit of wiggle room when you're adding these down to make sure that they can line up nicely. I've had a couple comments about, people having troubles laying them down. Really just using a liquid adhesive rather than a solid adhesive gives you a little bit more time to kind of move it around and wiggle it to make sure that the die lines up really nicely. And I just kind of push my fingers around the edges, making sure that it lines up on every single corner, and that's going to kind of help to make sure the die lines up really nicely as you layer it up. So you can see that once I layer up all of those die cuts, it's a little bit more substantial on your card, and it's going to stand off really nicely. Now, since Alexandra used the kind of more girly colors, those pink and purples, I'm going to use this little girl from the Bestest Friend stamp set, and I'll stamp that down onto some watercolor cardstock in jet black archival ink. Here's that fun stamp set. So you've got lots of awesome images in here for kind of celebrations and friendships, that awesome bear and stuff, but I'm just going to use that little image up there, and you could totally add things like the birthday hat or anything like that, but I want to keep it pretty simple so you can use this card for almost anything. Now to color this in, I'm going to use these brush pens that I created from my reinkers. Be sure to check out that video in the top right corner to see how to make these. They're really awesome for coloring images in, especially on the go. It's really simple to just pull out the little brushes and be able to paint the color on right from here. and you could totally add water and stuff to blend them out. But if you just want that straight up concentrated color, you can totally go in just with the brushes and have that. Now if I want to mix two colors, I can totally go in with my ink pads, but again, if I'm on the go, I can just grab a little bit of color from each one. I'm going to grab a little bit of Gur and a little bit of the slippery and wet that I created. And I'm just going to go in with some water and mix together the perfect ratio for this. And to test it out, I just go off to the side and see how my skin tone is looking. And you can totally add more or less color, kind of depending on what you want it to look like. So once I have exactly the color that I want, I can go right in and start painting that on. So you could totally just use a water brush with these pens as well to kind of mix those colors together and get a really awesome look like that. So I just went in and cut this out, leaving just a little bit of a white border, and this is gonna look so awesome on our card. So I wanna have the die cut with the little girl standing up front and center, and to do this and make a little bit of a focal behind the girl so that she has a little bit of a grounding point, I'm gonna go in with the Dina Wakley mixed media stencil, and this is just a simple dot pattern. So to do this, I'm going to pull in the Stay-tion. I can lay my stencil right over top, and then I'm going to add my magnets down, and I just want to stencil where that little girl is going to be standing on this card, so kind of front and center. To do this, I'm going to grab my slippery and wet ink, and this is going to complement that pink color really nicely, and I'm just going to go right in the center and kind of start blending that out, and that's my darker of the two yellow colors, so I'll just kind of blend that out, and then I'm going to grab my over the moon color, and this is kind of my lighter yellows of the two, and this is just going to soften those edges and bring a lighter yellow all the way across the card, so almost to the outer edge. I'm leaving a little bit of a white around the edge, but this is a super soft color, so it kind of helps that blend back into the white. And adding both those colors gives a little bit more depth and dimension. So here's for that fun reveal of that awesome background that we just created, and this just adds a little bit of a grounding point for the girl to stand. So I'm using a little bit of that Distress Collage Medium Matte to kind of assemble this die cut, and again, this gives me a little bit of a wiggle room, so I like that with die cuts, because sometimes I don't always place them perfectly the first time. And I think I'm going to add that down here at a little bit of an angle, so it just gives a little bit more interest on the card. So to add this little girl down on the card, I want there to be kind of a little bit of dimension, but since it's such a small image, I don't want to be able to see the foam tape from the side. So I'm going to use a little bit of this foam tape from Ranger. It's a clear foam, and it's really nice to kind of pop up images, but not have them be visible from the back. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of this foam tape and cut it down so that it fits really nicely behind my focal image. So once I've added a generous amount of that foam on the back, I can easily just put it right onto my card and stick it nice down. And I like that when you stick that down, it's a lot harder to see that foam from the back than a white foam that would be sticking out. I like to pre-plan where my sequins are going on my card, so once I got them all in place like this, I can pick them up with my tweezers, and then I can add a little bit of adhesive down and then add my sequin right down there. So this is just a really easy way of making sure you like where your sequin is going to go, and then I can easily add them down right after permanently. And with sequins, I usually stick to the rule of 3, so there's 3 different areas where there are sequins on my card, and I find that that's the most pleasing to the eye when I'm adding sequins down onto my projects. I know that sometimes adding sequins can be hard, but another thing that helps is adding them down in little groups, so you can see that the 3 groups of sequins are pretty darn close to each other on the card, and that looks really nice once you're all finished. Alright, so here is the first card all finished. I just love how we used the background that she created to make this awesome yay die cut. It kind of creates a focal point piece then. You can still see lots of that texture and color there that she used. And then just finishing it off with a little bit of stenciling and the Bestest Friends stamp set there made it really awesome and kind of tied it all together. Now the second background is a little bit more finished, and I'm super excited to use it. It's beautiful. She used some clear skies to kind of watercolor in the background, and then she used my Looks Like Rain stencil to kind of add a little bit of thermo web foil on it, and I am absolutely in love. So when you have a background like this that's a little bit more finished, you could totally just throw images on top and call it a card, which is what I love to do. She's got the grounding point already here with those raindrops, and all we need to do is just finish off the card. Now for this, I'm going to use the Simon Hurley Create Bestest Friend stamp set again. This one has that fun umbrella in it, and it has a little guy here, or you could use the girl, and of course the bear as well. So I've stamped these out using some Jet Black archival ink, and I'm going to go in and do some coloring again with my re-inker pens. once I'm all done coloring in my images, I can go ahead and go along the lines and cut them out. Now, if you have trouble with fussy cutting, one of the things that I find really helps is going right in with my Spring Assist Fiskars scissors, and I find that it helps to rotate and move around the paper rather than move around the scissors, and then you'll get a little bit of a cleaner line. And then once I've adhered it all down, I'm going to give it a really nice press once it's all in the place that I like it, to make sure that it all stays really nicely on the card. The background that she made is just a little bit taller than card base size, so all I need to do is bring it into my little trimmer here and trim it right down to the size of my card base. I've added some adhesive onto the back, and then I can add it onto a top folding card base that I made using my Stark white cardstock. I like to start from the top, aligning it, and then I can bring it down, and that's going to make sure that it's really nice and centered on that card. You can see there's nice white borders on either side. I also like to bring in this trimmer in case if I'm trimming off any excess, so I can go right in here and cut off any little pieces that are hanging off the edge to make sure that I have a nice straight edge at the bottom. And I don't want to forget a sentiment, so I'm going to use the sentiment from the set, Bestest Friends, that says, "I'm here for you." I'm just going to ink this up using some jet black archival ink, and then I can line it up and stamp it down onto a strip of my Stark white cardstock. And there's also this little tiny portion that says rain or shine on it, and I just love that sentiment to go along with this card, so I'm just going to stamp that right below the little strip that we placed. So there is that finished card. I just love all those little colored images from the Bestest Friends stamp set that we added on top of this wonderful background that Alexandra created, and that little sentiment that says, "I'm here for you, rain or shine," finishes it off super nicely. Alright, so these are the two cards using some kind of creative ways to incorporate the backgrounds, whether you're die cutting or just adding images or stamping or stenciling on top. It really is some awesome ways to use these backgrounds, and Alexandra did send some more over, and hopefully I get to use those in some projects in my card making in the future. Alright, so that was today's video. I hope you guys learned a little bit more about some creative ways to incorporate backgrounds into your cards. Today's video was a little bit of a challenge, but it was so much fun. Usually I create my backgrounds with a card in mind that I'm making, but it was so fun to use the backgrounds that Alexandra had created, kind of have a little bit more creativity, and come up with some things to use them for on my cards. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a big thumbs up, and also be sure to hit the subscribe button down below, and click the little bell icon next to the subscribe. That way you'll never miss another video like this one from me here on my channel. And also, I love hearing from you guys down below, so leave a comment letting me know which card in today's video was your favorite, or if you have any questions or comments, I cannot wait to chat with you guys down there. It's always so much fun getting back to you and kind of catching up with you in the comments below. Well, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all very soon for another card making and crafting video. Bye guys!